Okay, so this is the new Blackmagic PYXIS 6K, and oh man, I've never seen so many people get personally offended by what other people think about a camera. Both people who hate this camera and who adore this camera. It's insane. And well, since I'm a YouTuber, which means that I'm always right about things like this, duh, I'm here to tell you that both sides are wrong, okay? Or maybe they're both right. I don't know yet. So let's go over everything I've read about the PYXIS 6K in comment sections about dynamic range, rolling shutter, low light, all those things, and let's see what's true and what's not. What are valid points and what's complete nonsense. Oh, and thank you Blackmagic Design for sending me this camera. You know, I get sent stuff all the time to try out, but this time I really wish I didn't have to send it back. So, spoiler, I like it. Here's some more footage first. Okay, and now let's talk. So $2,295 is indeed a good price. What you get for that price is amazing in my opinion. But what some people, or a lot of people forget, is that for a lot of people, this camera will be their first box camera. And well, especially if it's your first one, you're gonna have to rig it. You can't use it out of the box. I mean, technically you can if you have a lens and then use the cable to plug it in an outlet, but eventually you're gonna need, well, first of all, a battery, BPU, or maybe a V-mount, 150 bucks. D-tap cables, 40 bucks each. If you want an electronic viewfinder, this one is 1,500 bucks. Personally, I'm not a fan of this. I prefer a monitor. But even if you already have a monitor, chances are that it's an HDMI monitor. Well, tough luck because there's only an SDI connection. So new monitor, at least 300 bucks. You're also gonna need some hardware to mount everything. The monitor, batteries, and everything else. CF Express cards. They sent me one with the camera from Angelbird. It's super fast, 1 terabyte, but that's also 300 bucks. So you get the picture, right? If you have to buy everything new, you'll end up spending more like 5,000 or 6,000 bucks. So super cheap? Not really. But compared to other box cameras, well, you know. So a lot of people say that this camera is useless in low lights because this or that, I don't know. And sometimes I read some valid points, but a lot of times it's also complete nonsense. And I also have a feeling that a lot of people just don't know how to expose an image or how light works, how a sensor works. I mean, just look at this footage. And this is all extreme low light, shot before sunrise. I agree, it's not a low light beast like my A7S III for example, but in my opinion, that looks great. So a few things I want to say. First of all, in the case of comparing it to the FX3 or A7S III specifically, well, those cameras have noise reduction built in. You can't turn it off. So you can't compare the image of the A7S III or the FX3 to the PYXIS without applying noise reduction. So that's super important. So when you're using the higher ISOs on the PYXIS, you're probably gonna have to apply more noise reduction yourself. And then secondly, you also have to understand the limits of your camera. With my A7S III, I can go to ISO 12,800, no problem. With this one, I can't. And for example, on the PYXIS, ISO 400 looks great, but then when you switch to 800, for example, you already see a big difference noise-wise. But again, there's no noise reduction built in. You have to do that yourself in Resolve. And the examples here, whenever there is noise reduction applied, it's just automatic noise reduction. So you can make it even look better if you want, if you do it manually. And also, all my footage here is shot in the lowest quality setting. So if you set your camera to a higher quality, you get even more room to work with. But you know what? I'll make a dedicated video on the PYXIS 6K in low light, showing you all the details and how it looks with different ISO settings, with and without noise reduction, all those things coming up. Okay, and then thirdly, I feel like a lot of people, when they hear low light or they want to shoot low light or they buy a low light camera, they want to turn night into day and they expect that the camera can do that. They want this, you know, a nice low light scene to look like this, like it was shot in daylight. And yeah, with the A7S III, you can almost do that. But the thing is, low light has to look like low light. You don't want a low light scene to look like it was shot in daylight. That doesn't make sense, right? Or am I wrong now? No, I'm always right. I'm a YouTuber. So yeah, it's definitely not a low light beast. If you want the same low light performance as the A7S III or the FX3, this is not the camera for you. But saying that you can't use it for low light, that's just lies, nonsense. Or you just don't know how to expose an image and how low light works. And you know what? I like what Team 2 Films said about this camera. It's not a no light camera like the A7S III or the FX3, it's a low light camera. Big difference. Okay, so some people say, it's just 13 stops of dynamic range and my FX3 has 15 stops. Well, first of all, those 15 stops is what Sony advertises and with built-in noise reduction. And everyone who actually tests it gets a lower number. I'm not saying that the Pyxis has more dynamic range than the FX3 or A7S III, but you know, what does it matter? Like 12.7 stops or 13.2? Does it really like make that big of a difference? I would understand if this camera would have like 9 stops compared to, you know, all the other cameras who have around 13. But stop worrying about half a stop of dynamic range. And shoot more, learn how to expose probably, how to edit your footage, and look at the footage. I mean, sure, if you just convert it to Rec 709 straight out of the camera, it doesn't look super cinematic and, you know, but spend a little longer working with the footage and it looks amazing. Plenty of dynamic range to work with. When it comes to dynamic range, this camera can compete with a lot of other cinema cameras, no problem. And I like it that Blackmagic Design advertises the real dynamic range. Okay, so yeah, the screen doesn't flip out, but you're not really supposed to use it as a monitor while you're filming. It's to access the menu, and trust me, Blackmagic Design's menu system is amazing. But just like any other box camera, you're gonna need a monitor or an electronic viewfinder. If you want a flip out screen, then buy an A7S III or an FX3 or an R5. And you know what? They actually have this new USB monitor now. So you just connect it with a USB cable and it gets power through the USB cable. No messing around with those big batteries on the back of your monitor. That's actually one of my favorite new features or new products that they've added. And it's just $300. I mean, that's amazing. So while with all the other comments that we've talked about in this video, I understand that there's discussion sometimes, but that there's no flip out screen? Like, seriously? Maybe they're just trolls. I don't know, I can't tell anymore. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie here, there is rolling shutter. I think it's 18 milliseconds from what I read everywhere online. And yeah, that's not great. And then I see everyone doing these tests, you know? Yep. And then other people see that, and then they start gathering with pitchforks and torches in front of Blackmagic Design's offices. Outrageous, 18 milliseconds. But the Sony FX9, I think, has 20 or 21 milliseconds. The Sony Burrito, also 18 milliseconds. And they use that camera for big productions. So, you know, I think 18 milliseconds will be just fine for, you know, filming your cat on the windowsill. Don't you think? No, but seriously. I understand that it could be a problem for some people, depending on what you do and what you expect from a camera. But honestly, I think people, like, they exaggerate it or something. Like, you know, they see these tests and of course you're trying to make it look like the worst possible, but in reality, it's not that bad. And also, the Pyxis has gyro stabilization, which can also help, and that's a really cool feature. You can only shoot in B-RAW, and I agree. If you like ProRes RAW or if you need ProRes RAW, that's a problem. Also because you need DaVinci Resolve to edit B-RAW. So if you don't want to switch to DaVinci Resolve, I mean, yeah, problem. Unless you're gonna transcode everything, but why would you buy this camera then? So, I mean, if it's a deal breaker for you, it's a deal breaker, no problem. But I love B-RAW. It's so good. I love the workflow. I love DaVinci Resolve. So yeah, what can I say? Maybe just give it a try first. So in 6K, the limit is 30 frames per second. In 4K, it's 60. And if you want 120 frames per second, you have to shoot in 1080p. And again, yeah, that might be a problem for some people. If you do a lot of work that requires extreme slow motion, this is not the camera for you. But personally, the last time that I used 120 FPS, that was when epic cinematic B-roll was still a thing. Good old times. So, I mean, these days I don't use 120 FPS anymore. 60, yeah, maximum 60. So, I mean, it is a limitation. If you need it, it's not there. But it's only a limitation if you need it. So this is, I think, the only thing that I really wish they would have added. Internal NDs. And I think they probably will when, you know, the next version of this camera comes out. But it's also to keep the price low probably. But personally, I would pay more if it had internal NDs. And I know there are solutions. If you use PL lenses, you can get one of those PL adapters with drop-in NDs. There's other drop-in solutions, but internal NDs, it makes everything so much easier, right? It's an old sensor that they're using. Yeah, it's true that it's the same sensor as the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K. I don't know how old it really is or how old the technology is, but does it really matter? The only thing that matters to me is what the actual image looks like. Do you like the image or not? You know, that's the most important thing. And then some people also say that because it's the same sensor as the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K, it's pretty much the same camera. And that's absolutely not true. The sensor might be the same, but it's an entirely different camera, a different tool. The build quality is also so much better. The amount of rigging options, different batteries, 2 CF Express slots, like everything about it is different. This is more professional. And I agree, the image that you get will be very similar, not to say almost the same, but they're two completely different cameras, completely different tools. Look, I think people who say that this is a terrible camera and they should have done better, you're so wrong. But then, on the other hand, also people who say this is, wow, this is like the best thing they ever came out with, well, you're also wrong. It's a tool, and this tool will work for a lot of people, but it won't for just as many. And also, what's with all the loyalty in camera land? I'm not loyal to one brand. You know, I love my A7S III. I also love this thing. I wish I didn't have to send it back. And I also love my Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K. And technically, I can use all those cameras to shoot videos like this, for example. But with the A7S III, it's just easier. But then, you know, if you want to shoot a documentary, then probably this is going to be the better choice. Even though you can also shoot a great documentary with the A7S III or the FX3. So, yeah, I think this is a great camera. Especially at that price point. What you get, it's amazing. It's not perfect, it has limitations, definitely. Not everyone will like it, and that's fine. And actually, I also think that this camera, you know, it might give other companies a little kick in the butt to come up with cameras that have the same huge value for money. I really think that the future for small filmmakers looks great. Even if you don't like the PYXIS 6K, because it might trigger your favorite company to come up with something even better than this, you know? And that's it. I just want peace in camera land. That's what I want. Can't wait to read the comment section. Salut en tot de volgende.